last person was coming this side. So I said, anybody walking in, just money organized from I skipped the part. Who's doing the coordination from there, including the people for the allowing people to enter? They have
Good morning and namaste. On behalf of India Tourism Mumbai, the regional office of Ministry of Tourism for Western region, I welcome all the participants who have joined in today for the special book reading session of the book Gandhi in Mumbai by Dr. Mrs. Usha Thakkar and Ms. Sandhya R. Mehta. The Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations of the Ministry of Tourism. The Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav from the Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad on 12th March 2021 to commemorate the 91 years of Dandi March. It was I was fortunate enough to be present in this launch function of the book reading session also today from Ahmedabad, Gujarat, the birth state of Mahatma Gandhi. The Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is a series of events organized by Government of India to commemorate the 75th anniversary of independence. The Mahotsav will be celebrated as people's movement across the country. I also take this opportunity to welcome the eminent scholars and authors of the book Gandhi in Mumbai, Dr. Usha Thakkar and Ms. Sandhya Mehta, who readily accepted our request for doing this book reading. Thank you again, ma'am, on behalf of India Tourism Mumbai and Ministry of Tourism. It is also my privilege to welcome and introduce Ms. Rupinder Brar, Additional Director General, Ministry of Tourism, who has joined in today from Delhi. As we know, she spearheads the promotion and publicity initiatives of Ministry of Tourism and the Dekho Apna Desh campaign to promote domestic tourism. We all know the very successful Dekho Apna Desh webinar series has crossed over 75 sessions, and this was again brainchild of Madam Rupinder Brar. Ma'am, welcome to this session. And in fact, the Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav initiative activities are led by Ms. Rupinder Brar. I also would like to welcome Ms. Garima Chaudhary, the founder of the Cultural Samvad, the organization which is helping India tourism in curating the digital presence for Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav and also guiding us with content, etc. Before I introduce the author, produced by India Tourism through Cultural Samvad. Can we have the film, Parul?
15 अगस्त 1947 भारत के असंख्य वीर पुत्र पुत्रियों के बलिदानों के फलस्वरूप शस्य श्यामला माँ भारती की धरा ने आजादी के अमृत का पुनः रसास्वादन किया। 15 अगस्त 2022 हिंदुस्तान को आज़ादी मिलने की 75वीं वर्षगांठ। यह ऐतिहासिक पड़ाव न केवल एक अनूठा राष्ट्रीय पर्व होगा, वरन हमारे अतीत और भविष्य को एक सूत्र में बांध हमारे स्वतंत्रता सेनानियों के स्वप्नों को साकार करने का एक अभूतपूर्व अवसर भी होगा। इस पर्व को अविस्मरणीय बनाने हेतु आइए आप और हम इस आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव के सहभागी बने। यह उत्सव है हमारी आजादी का, यह उत्सव है हमारी बहुरंगी गौरवशाली सनातन संस्कृति एवं अनंत प्राकृतिक एवं मानवीय धरोहर रूपी अमृत का। यह उत्सव है हमारी अनेकता में एकता का। यह उत्सव है एक उज्जवल भारत के स्वर्णिम भविष्य का। यह उत्सव है जन जन का। यह उत्सव है 130 करोड़ भारतवासियों का। यह उत्सव है विश्व के सबसे विशाल जनतंत्र का। यह उत्सव है आपका, हमारा, सबका। यह है आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव। जय हिंद।
Thank you, Parul, for playing that film. Now, let me introduce the authors who will be doing the book reading. Dr. Usha Thakkar is the president of Mani Bhavan, Gandhi Sangrahalaya, Mumbai. She retired as professor and head of Department of Political Science, SNDT Women's University, Mumbai. She has done her postdoctoral research in at the University of Chicago, United States, on Fulbright Fellowship at Cornell University, on Senior Fulbright Fellowship at New York University, Canada, at York University, Canada, and on WID Fellowship from the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute. She was also a visiting fellow at the Sheffield City Polytechnic, UK. The Asiatic Society of Mumbai has conferred an honorary fellowship on her. She has been vice president of Asiatic Society of Mumbai and also of Basantali Vidyapith, deemed university for women, Rajasthan. Her research areas are Gandhian studies, women studies, co-authored, co-edited include Gandhi in Bombay, Towards Swaraj, Understanding Gandhian in Conversation, Gandhians in Conversation with Fred J. Blum, William Erskine, a monograph in the series Founders and Guardians of the Asiatic Society of Mumbai, Women in Indian Society, Zero Point Bombay, In and Around Honeyman Circle, Culture and the Making of Identity in Contemporary India, India in the World Affairs, Toward the 25th Century, Pushpanjali's essays on Gandhian themes in honor of Dr. Usha Mehta, Politics in Maharashtra, Kautalya and his Arthashastra, and Women Studies series in Gujarati, and Ghungat Ka Phatkol, a collection of star stories by women writers in Gujarati. She has also presented papers at many national and international conferences and has contributed to many prestigious journals. Sandhya R. Mehta is an independent researcher and social media coordinator of Mani Bhavan, Gandhi Sangrahalaya, Mumbai. She has co-authored the Gandhi in Bombay with Dr. Usha Thakkar. Her other publications include Gandhiji on religious conversion, it's a compilation, and an article in Freedom Fighters Remember. She holds a degree in history from the Jesus and Mary College, uh, Ms. Rupinder Brar, ADG, Ministry of Tourism, to give the opening remarks and also take forward the book reading. Ma'am, please come in.
Thank you, Venkat, and namaste, and a very good morning to everyone. Indeed, a matter I would say of great privilege and prestige for us that we have two such illustrious scholars on Mahatma Gandhi, and not only Mahatma Gandhi, but overall, I would say the whole spirit of the Indian freedom movement. So, most welcome, Dr. Usha Thakkar ji and Sandhya Mehta ji. As I said, you have added value to our platform as we take the whole story of Dekho Apna Desh and now celebrating India at 75. As Venkateshan ji has already mentioned, 12th March 2021, the Honorable Prime Minister heralded the start of the celebrations that will go for 75 weeks and will culminate next year on 15th August 2022, when India, the free India, will be completing, and I should say not only a free but a very strong India will be completing its 75 years of being born after the colonial powers finally left our shores. And in that whole movement, the huge role and the significant role, both in terms of the macro level leadership in creating that voice and narrative for India when we were still under colonial rule, and actually connecting down to the grassroots level, was the caliber of the man on whom you are going to be doing the book reading. And again, it's a matter, I would say, that with great privilege that both our scholars today, Usha Thakkar ji and Sandhya Mehta ji, are in Mani Bhavan, a place where the Mahatma himself stayed from, I think, from about 1917 to about 1934. And all the major movements, whether it was non-cooperation, whether it was Satyagraha against the Rowlatt Act, whether it was the Swadeshi or the Khadi movement, all actually got announced or said from Mani Bhavan. And therefore, one can very well imagine, we were talking about it before the start of the session, the kind of vibrations that there must be. One, the very fact that the Mahatma was there, and the fact that such incredible thoughts came out of the walls of what we today know as Mani Bhavan, a two-story building, I believe in Gamdevi. I, of course, had a fortune to visit it because I was living on Pedder Road for a long time and Gamdevi is right next door. So I can truly understand the sheer magnificence, I should say, of this building, and would encourage everyone who is listening currently live or at any other point of time, if you are in Mumbai, do not miss visiting this almost holy place, I would say, for an independent India. So welcome once again, Dr. Usha Thakkar ji and Sandhya Mehta ji. And I'm sure we'll have a fantastic book reading session, and it will inspire all of us to work further more and more to make our country Atmanirbhar and make it stronger and make it truly the free India for all Indians, just the way the Mahatma had envisaged this land to be. So welcome once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words of introduction. And Sandhya and I, we are happy to be here at this special place, Mani Bhavan. And we thank you for inviting us this morning. Now, when we are talking about Gandhi and Bombay, now Mumbai, but in Gandhi's time, it used to be called Bombay. It's a very fascinating story because we came across so many little things and very interesting, and at the same time, pieces of history that make our history, every Indian's history, the history of the freedom struggle of India. So Gandhi and Bombay, now Mumbai, share a symbiotic relationship that spanned over decades and strengthened over years. The city welcomed Gandhi warmly on his return from South Africa on 9th January 1915, and this warmth never faded away. For years, Bombay became the site of his political activities and agitations. Processions and protest meetings organized under his name drew people from all sections of society. If Gandhi's leadership was magnetic, the city's response was overwhelming. Gandhi's important nationwide movements were intertwined with the life of this city and its people. Gandhi was full of energy and the city brimming with vibrancy. So this amalgam resulted in a powerful synergy that made history. Our book attempts to present an overview of the relationship between Gandhi and Bombay during the period from his arrival from South Africa in 1915 to the time of his assassination. It is fascinating to explore when Gandhi visited the city, what he said, whom he met, which meetings he organized or attended and where, what movements he launched and why, who he worked with, and so on. These small and large snippets of information put together create a rainbow collage that presents the story of this remarkable relationship between the leader and the city. The methods by which he set the tone and tenor of his movements in the city, the manner in which he energized and mobilized local people, the obstacles he faced, and also the ways in which the city supported and nurtured him are fascinating. If the subject is overwhelming, because the leader is exceptional and the city dynamic. Now we often think that Mumbai is the commercial capital. But as we go through the pages of history, we realize that it had been the center for Gandhiji's activities, and this city occupies a special place in the history of our freedom struggle. Now that brings me to the Rowlatt Satyagraha of 1919. And before 1919, Gandhi had chosen places as Champaran, Kheda, and Bardoli as the sites of his Satyagraha. Strongly rooted in the soil and highly critical of modern civilization, Gandhi disliked big cities. In 1917, however, it was Ahmedabad that was the stage of his Satyagraha. And in 1919, he chose Bombay, now Mumbai, the metropolitan city buzzing with commercial and industrial activities, to launch his first nationwide Satyagraha. Now, he launched this Satyagraha on 6th of April, 1919. And that's a special day. And it is chronicled so beautifully in the literature of those times, especially Bombay Chronicle gives a graphic description of those times. Now, what is interesting is that some material was proscribed at that time by the government, like Hind Swaraj, that is Gandhi's paraphrase of Ruskin's Unto the Last, and then Gujarati paraphrase of Defense of Socrates by Gandhi, and the life and address of Mustafa Kamal Pasha. Now, Gandhi with Sarojini Naidu, they moved around in the car and sold the copies of this proscribed literature. Although priced at 4 annas, they fetched much more. 5 and 10 rupees notes would cover the price of a single copy. And in one case, a copy was sold out for rupees 50. It was explained to the people that they were liable to be arrested and imprisoned for purchasing the proscribed literature. But for the moment, they had shed the fear of going to jail. It is interesting, again, that from Mani Bhavan, Gandhi published Satyagrahi, an unregistered newspaper issued on 7th April 1919 in defiance of the Indian Press Act. It was published from this place, Mani Bhavan. The paper was the size of a half sheet and priced at 1 paisa. It declared that since the paper had not been registered under the law, there could be no annual subscription, and the paper would exist only until the withdrawal of the Rowlatt agitation. Now we get beautiful description, how people reacted, how many meetings were held, how Gandhi propagated the gospel of Swadeshi. But we would like to say in the words of B.R. Nanda that actually Gandhi was the script writer, the producer, the director, and the main actor of the drama of Satyagraha. So now we realize that role at Satyagraha had propelled Gandhi into the national political scene. He was now entrusted with the role of guiding the nation. His unconventional approach to politics, innovative strategies, ability to bring together people of different ideological streams, and the unusual capacity to mobilize people at all levels had put him in the position of an undisputed leader of India. Tagore, in his famous letter of 12th April 1919, referred to him as Mahatma Ji, an endearing title that was already engraved in the hearts of the people. Now, this is 1919, but let's go back a little and have a glimpse of the past. When Gandhi arrived in 1915, what was the scenario like? Because by 1919, he's visible at national level. But in 1915, the situation was a bit different. So I request Sandhya.
Yes, Gandhi returned to India in 1950. By this time, he had already established as an international reputation of a leader who fought for the causes of Indians in South Africa through his unusual method or the theory of passive resistance or Satyagraha. 9th January 1915 appeared to be like any other winter day on the Bombay docks. The weather was pleasant and the place was bustling with the presence of passengers, visitors, and the people working there. The day, however, was to go down in the annals of history as a special day because around 7:30 a.m., Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi returned to India with his wife Kasturba on a steamer, SS Arabia, from South Africa to London. Gandhi, who had left the shores of India in Western dress, was keen to adapt the changes in lifestyle. Had returned home dressed in Kathiawadi attire, dhoti, coat, and turban, with a determination to settle in India. The elite of Bombay were eager to welcome him. His landing took place by permission of the authorities at Apollo Bandar, an honor India's most distinguished sons shared with royalty and viceroys. At the quay, he was received by hundreds of people. It was proposed that there should be a public reception at Apollo Bandar and that subsequently Gandhi and Kasturba should be taken in procession. But the authorities did not look with the favor on this proposal, and arrangement for the reception had to be modified accordingly. Now, as Dr. Thakkar had told you about the Khilafat movement and the propaganda of Swadeshi, let me talk about the bonfire. To promote Swadeshi, Gandhi campaigned for the bonfire of foreign clothes. The bonfire of foreign clothes were held 3 times in Bombay at Elphinstone Mills compound in Parade. Right now, there is an office of Indiabulls there. The first bonfire was held on 31st July, then on 9th October, and the third on 17th November 1921. The description I'm going to give you is of the second bonfire on 9th October. The bonfire of foreign clothes took place on the evening of October 9 in the compound of Elphinstone. The enthusiasm of the people were matched by their overwhelming numbers. From early morning, people were moving towards the Elphinstone Road, clothed in khadi, and later in the evening, it was impossible to pass along the Elphinstone Bridge and its precincts. The meeting, despite such a large crowd, was extremely orderly, perhaps the most orderly of all the meetings of its kind in Bombay. The public area, in the middle of the area, large platform was erected for the leaders, and near it, the foreign clothes that had been collected during the past few days were arranged in the shape of pyramids. The heap was well arranged, soaked in kerosene, mixed with crackers, Sarojini Naidu presided over the meeting. Gandhi's speech was full of pathos and it moved all who were present. He had tears in his eyes. So moved was he by the sorrow at the failure on the people's part in doing their duty towards the country. Mahatma lighted the heap of foreign clothing and it burned on merrily amidst the loud noise of crackers and bursting flames. The sight was extremely impressive and the vast audience, the burning clothes and the passionate speakers under the God sky in the glowing night.
Yes, so bonfire, those scenes are really impressive. Now, as we know, by 1919, Tagore has already called Gandhi Mahatma, and people now refer to him as Mahatma Ji. So he is a leader at the national level. And again, it is very interesting that Gandhi chooses this city as the site of his major movements. So the launch of non-cooperation movement opened a new chapter in the history of India. With his letter dated 1st August 1920 to the Viceroy, Gandhi returned, not without a pang, the Kaisar-e-Hind Gold Medal granted to him by the British government for his humanitarian work in South Africa, the Zulu War Medal granted in South Africa for his war services as the officer in charge of the Indian Volunteer Service Corps in 1906, and the medal for his services as the Assistant Superintendent of the Indian Volunteer Stretcher Bearer Corps during the War 1890. And the Non-Cooperation Committee issued detailed instructions for the observance of full hartal on 1st August. Now, this movement was formally launched on 1st August 1920, and it merged with the observance of fast, hartal, and the processions on the day of Tilak's death. Now, by this time, it is amazing how women are responding to Gandhi's call, and people from all sections are with Gandhi with all their energies. So Gandhi's immense faith in the efficacy of the non-cooperation movement instilled new energy in the people. And this brings us to 1921, that is when Gandhi called for the Tilak Swaraj Fund. Now it is amazing how Gandhi had set the target of rupees 1 crore in those days in 1921, before 100 years, and how this our city responded to Gandhi's call with great generosity. We find vivid descriptions of Gandhi's moves and the efforts of his colleagues. We cannot go into detail into all this, but we would like to say that the outcome of the large-heartedness and kindness of the people of Bombay was outstanding. A sum of about 37.5 lakhs was collected for the Tilak Swaraj Fund from this city. Bombay's generosity earned the city the sobriquet, the beautiful, by Gandhi. Writing in Young India on 6th July 1921, under the heading, Bombay the Beautiful, Gandhi said, Bombay is beautiful, not for its big buildings, for most of them hide squalid poverty and dirt, not for its wealth, for most of it is derived from the blood of the masses, but for its world-renowned generosity. He further said that Bombay's charity has covered a multitude of her sins. And in respect of Tilak Swaraj Fund, Bombay has beaten her past records. Between the 16th and 30th of June, the city subscribed at the rate of 2.5 lakhs per day. She enabled India to keep her promise. Now, isn't that wonderful that our city is enabling Mahatma to keep his promise, his target.
Yes, and that is the reason Gandhiji received the civic address twice from the Municipal Corporation of Bombay. The first civic address Gandhiji received was on 29th August 1924 at Kavasi Jahangir Hall. The second time he received the civic address on 18th April 1931 at Municipal Hall. Gandhiji had come to Bombay on 16th April 1931 to bid farewell to Lord Irwin, who was retiring. During his short stay in Bombay, he met and spoke to governor, Congress workers, and mill owners. On 18th April, he received an address from Municipal Corporation for the second time at the BMC Hall. People in Bombay were excited. A huge crowd had assembled outside BMC building. The hall was full to the capacity. Although the admission had been restricted to those having tickets, the address was inscribed in silk khadi and closed in a beautifully carved rosewood box. Baman Behram paid a tribute to Gandhi's invaluable work in the cause of India and read the address. In his reply, Gandhi emphasized the importance of the village and need to take care of the poor. He said, "Handsome is the handsome does. Bombay, the beautiful, must do the beautiful things for the poor." So, of course, the title he gave, or Swabik he gave to Bombay was Bombay the Beautiful. It applies very aptly. And then 1931, he went to London to attend the Roundtable Conference. He returned from London after attending the Roundtable Conference on December 28, 1931. Though attending the second Roundtable Conference, after attending the second Roundtable Conference, he returned by SS Pilsner. Though he attended the conference, though the conference was not successful, but the city gave him a hero's welcome. The road was decorated from Bella Pier to Mani Bhavan. I'll give you a brief description about his arrival. The city was delighted on his return in December. The good deal of enthusiasm was noticed on the morning of 28 December when large crowds of people were seen thronging the route of the procession by which Gandhi was to pass. The route was decorated particularly at Sheikh Memon Street, Bhuleshwar, Bazar Gate. About 500 female volunteers in saffron sarees were in attendance from Central Hall to Green Gate. After he returned in 1931 December, his arrest was imminent. So, on January, early morning of 4th January 1932, Gandhiji was arrested from the terrace of Mani Bhavan. Warrior Irwin, he's a renowned anthropologist and tribal activist, has given a very touching description of his arrest from the terrace of Mani Bhavan. He says, there was excitement in the city. Viceroy had rejected the Congress offer of peace. Nehru was already in jail, and the arrest of other national leaders were expected at any moment. But when he reached Mani Bhavan and climbed to the roof, we found a great serenity in astonishing contrast to the crowds and turmoil outside. The roof was a very pleasant place. Low tents had been erected. There were palms and plants. At least 300 people could gather there. It was cool and you could see the stars. Bapu was sitting in the wheel quietly spinning. He had already begun his weekly silence. I carried on one-sided conversation with him and he wrote down his questions and replies on a scrap of paper. It was his silence day. Then I retired to the smaller tent and Bapu lay down about 3 yards away from us. Mrs. Gandhi and Meeraben gave us surprisingly satisfying supper of dates, nuts and fruit. But I could not sleep. As I wrote at the time, I felt I had to keep the vigil. And for hours, I was under those splendid stars that rose, tier upon tier above me, while beside me, Bapu slept like a child committed to his father's hands. I thought of a Christ going up to a Jerusalem, his eyes filled with determination and courage. So that was a very good description Alvin Valier gives of his arrest from the terrace of Mani Bhavan Gandhi Sangrahalaya. Yes,
Okay, now it's in 1930s. They are very exciting times for the nation and for all the people. Because that Gandhi had started his epic journey from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi on 12th March 1930. Our city was agog with excitement. Gandhi was not present personally, but he was very much there in his ideas and the work of the people. And the city was humming with activities after Gandhi picked up salt at Dandi. And there were protests in Bombay, especially places like Vileparle or Vadala. I mean, we get again such engaging description of the activities of the people that, we get immersed that how people had reacted to that. Now, as for example, of course, Vileparle people were very active, and a program of making salt from sea water on the terrace of the Congress House was launched from 8th April. And this was done by boiling water and making salt in cement salt pans on the terrace. And a meeting of 30,000 people, including 200 women, was held in Chowpatty to congratulate K.F. Nariman, Jamnalal Bajaj, and other Satyagrahis on their arrest. Contraband sold was enthusiastically sold, and then, of course, they were arrested, they were caught, but they never hampered the enthusiasm of the people. And the last day of the National Week, now National Week is a special week which Gandhi had said we need to observe, because on 6th April, that was the beginning of the Satyagraha, and 13th April was the day of the Jallianwala massacre. So we observe it as the National Week. So the last day of the National Week, 13th April, witnessed large processions in Chowpatty when they turned into a mass rally of about 50,000 people, including around 1,000 women. So we just try to visualize the scenario, what it must have been, where we have people like Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay or Sarojini Naidu, they are around us. And on 20th April, there was a massive rally of people, and around 1 lakh persons, according to Bombay Chronicle, met in Chowpatty. And speakers included Sarojini Naidu, Avantika Bai Gokhale, Kamala Devi, A.M. Munshi, Lilavati Munshi, V.V. Jerajani, Ganpati Shankar, N. Desai, and others. And the police repression failed to repress the spirit of the Satyagrahis. Now, this is the spirit of the Satyagraha, and a succession of raids on the Vadala salt depot was an important phase in the salt Satyagraha of Bombay. Now, we get such impressive details of these events that we wonder how people must have communicated, how they must have organized, and how they must have acted, sometimes collectively, sometimes individually. And I'm tempted to share one example of the spirit of the city's women. Now, there was notable picketing against liquor and foreign cloth, and on 12th December 1930, Babu Genu, a mill worker, offered courageous satyagraha by trying to prevent a truck carrying foreign cloth, and sacrificed his life as the truck crushed him. This touched the heart of the citizens of Mumbai, and a rare report of the Desh Sevika Sangh, published in 1930, notes an unprecedented move by the people. Courage of our Sevikas was proved when they faced the bayonets of the military surrounding the mortal remains of Babu Genu. And they were, throughout the year, they paid the resolute tributes to the spirit of nationalism, and perhaps for the first time in the history of recorded Hinduism, high caste Hindu women led a funeral procession and did the last loving service to the mortal remains by setting the torch to the fire of Babu Gate. So I think this is the time when the walls of tradition, they just crumble down before or against the force of nationalism. And that is why K.M. Munshi has written that how the city had responded to Gandhi's call. He has written, political consciousness, so far confined to a section of the highly educated in the city, began to filter down to the middle class, both upper and lower. And flowering during the Gandhian movement of 1930, it made Bombay the citadel of national movement. So our city has been the citadel of national movement. And then, of course, so much happens. And I understand the constraints of time. And that brings us to glorious chapter in our freedom struggle, in the history of the city, in the history of India. And that is the Quit India struggle or Quit India movement of 1942. So the All India Congress Committee session on 7th and 8th August 1942 left its indelible mark on history. And it was organized at Gwalior Tank Maidan, August Kranti Maidan, that is just 3 blocks away from Mani Bhavan where we are right now. And the committee had resolved to sanction for the vindication of India's inalienable right to freedom and independence, the starting of a mass struggle on non-violent lines on the widest possible scale so that the country might utilize all the non-violent strength it had gathered during the last 22 years of a peaceful struggle. And such a struggle must invariably be under the leadership of Gandhiji, and the committee requests him to take the lead and guide the nation in the steps to be taken. And of course, Gandhi is at his best when he says to the people at that meeting, here is a mantra and a short one that I give you. You may imprint it in your hearts and let every breath of yours give expression to it. The mantra is do or die. We shall either free India or die in the attempt. We shall not live to see the perpetuation of our slavery. And he has asked each and every Indian to come forward and to contribute in this freedom struggle. And we get the newspapers and magazines of those times with headlines, All India protest demonstration in city, or all agitations in the city and in the country. And all the leaders were whisked away to prison. Gandhi was taken to prison on 9th August. And when the Congress leaders were whisked away by the government on 9th August, Aruna Asaf Ali, a young firebrand leader, emerged like a lightning in the morning, unfolded the national flag at the Gwalior Tank Maidan, now August Kranti Maidan, and went underground. And that made news everywhere. And Sandhya and I, we were fortunate that we met some people who were there at this historic meeting, and they shared their precious memories with us. So Gandhi's arrest had marked the launch of the movement in the spontaneous way. The city plunged into hartals, processions, demonstrations, and outbursts of popular unrest. The government took recourse to arrest and firing, leading to further chaos and disorder. Unrest spread to the interiors of Bombay Presidency, like other provinces, and according to the government report, there were disorderly crowds, among whom students were prominent, gathered simultaneously at several places in the city and threw stones and soda water bottles at trams, buses, and cars in the city, especially at the police. And I would also like to talk how city had loved our leader, Gandhi. And the city chalked out a special program to celebrate the birthday of its leader, Gandhi. Like, the program was called the Gandhi Week. The 2nd October was complete Hartal. 3rd October was observed as Tricolor Day by wearing a dress of our flag, that is white, green, and orange. 4th October was Do or Die Day. 5th October was Quit India Day. 6th October, Azadi Day. 7th October, Flag Day. 8th October, Complete Hartal. And interestingly, 9th October, it is said that the program for 9th October will depend on the response given by the public during the week. Now, when we are talking about this 1942, I would like to say something which we have written in our book, that the Congress radio, the underground radio, managed to be on air from the second half of August and did an excellent job until 12th November, when the police raided the place of the then transmission. So Usha Mehta and Chandrakant Jhaveri were arrested on the spot, and there was then a case instituted against her colleagues, that were Babubhai Thakkar, Pithal Das Jhaveri, and Nanak Motwani, and of course Usha Mehta and Chandrakant Jhaveri. Now, Usha Mehta was my professor. Many of you must have known her, and she was also the president of Mani Bhavan Gandhi Sangrahalaya and Gandhi Smarak Nidhi, Mumbai. Now, 1942 movement was a massive tumultuous wave engulfing the people in the country, and the city of Bombay was the nerve center drawing people from all sections. Recollecting those times, Aruna Asaf Ali had said later that I was but a splinter of the lava thrown up by the volcanic eruption of the people's indignation. It was indeed that. The year 1942 in Bombay was spectacular in its scope of awakening and protest, unleashing the energy and opening new avenues of freedom. And then we come to the, do we have time? Yeah, for 5 minutes. And then we come to the saddest part of the story. As Nehru had said, the light is no more. And with Gandhi's assassination, an era ends. And again, the city is engulfed by sorrow and sadness. And the news of Gandhi's death led to some violent outbursts in the city, but they were soon controlled. And 300,000 people paid him a silent homage at the beach outside Bombay, dipping in the sea as the radio announced the Gandhi's funeral fire had been lighted. More than 5 lakh people formed a procession on 12th February for the immersion of Gandhi's ashes in the Arabian Sea at Chowpatty. And at Chowpatty, the largest crowd ever seen on the sands had assembled. There was the chorus of Gandhi's favorite bhajans and recitations from the Gita, Quran, and Avesta. And when we talk of Gandhi and our city, the story is not complete without Mani Bhavan. Yes, because that's the last part of our talk and reading. In conclusion, let me tell you about Mani Bhavan. Mani Bhavan in Mumbai treasures memories of Mahatma's association with Bombay. It is the modest 2-storied building on Lebanon Road in the comparatively quiet locality of Mumbai called Gamdevi. Gandhi stayed here whenever he visited Bombay during the years 1917 and 34. It served for about 17 eventful years as the nerve center in the city for Gandhi's activities and movements.
It belonged to Reva Shankar Zaveri, who was an ardent devotee of Gandhi and his affectionate host during the period. Today, Mani Bhavan is hallowed memorial to Gandhi, to his stay there, and to the activities he initiated from there. This is a heritage building of national importance, is visited daily by large number of visitors from India and abroad. Mani Bhavan resonates with the memories of Gandhi, Satyagraha, his past, his spinnings, his writings, his meetings, and his arrest. It is the place where he interacted with his colleagues to mold the freedom movement in the image of the cherished ideals of truth and non-violence. It is a source of inspiration for the lovers of the freedom and peace the world over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Usha Thakkar and Ms. Sandhya Mehta. It was an amazing session. And in fact, sitting far away here, one could really kind of feel the vibrations. If you just go back in time machine, it was really a kind of very touching to hear the each account that you have brought out in book of Gandhi's days in Bombay. Uh, may I invite ma'am to give her comments? ADG ma'am. Okay, I think we're not able to get her. And in fact, I would also like to say that as part of this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, we are also planning to design. Ma'am, are you there? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
We are
thank you
we are
so much.
planning
I
to,
think Venkat, it's been a wonderful session.
ma'am.
Fortunately, my other meeting got changed, so I was able to listen to the entire discussion. So fantastic, absolutely. And I think what I said in the beginning, even if somebody was sitting on the fence earlier that whether, okay, when should I go to Mani Bhavan and can I travel? And if I go to Bombay, should it be on my to-do list? Today's session has ensured that anybody when traveling to Bombay and even people who are Mumbaikars and living in Bombay and have never visited Mani Bhavan will at least take it on themselves that we must be visiting Mani Bhavan to feel and to be a part of history and to be a part of that feeling of reaching out to the masses from there and how the whole movement actually picked steam after Mahatma Gandhi came and started off and on staying in Mani Bhavan. I think there is so much learning for all of us. So I can only say thank you once again to both our eminent scholars for sharing their time. And Venkat, would you like to take some
Yeah,
questions?
ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. With before concluding, ma'am, I would also like to say that as part of the celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, we are putting together something called Azadi Trail. And for Mumbai and other places, we would like to again reach out to the eminent authors to kind of put together certain sites, etc., in Mumbai, so that we can take the youth, the students, etc., on these tours, so that we can create awareness about the places associated with the India's freedom struggle and the national leaders. So we will, if with the permission of Mani Bhavan, we'll seek their support to help us to designing certain exclusive tours, etc. With this, once again, ma'am, I would like to thank on behalf of Ministry of Tourism, Indiatourism Mumbai, both the presenters, Dr. Usha Thakkar and Ms. Sandhya R. Mehta for taking time out and reading out experts from the book and taking us back to the era of Gandhi when he was there in Bombay in flesh and blood. And really, it's an inspiring thing. Thank you again, everybody who were involved. Special thanks to Ms. Garima, who are also coordinating the technical side, and also to Parul for putting together this web room, and all the participants who came in taking time on a Monday morning. And it was good to see that so many people had joined. That's a real encouraging thing, and we look forward to doing such more sessions. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's do that.